Hello, today I'm going to discuss to you about another type of factoring known as perfect trinomial square. Okay, from the name itself, perfect trinomial square, we have to have three terms. That makes it trinomial. Okay, let's have an example. Say we have x squared minus 10x plus 25. How are we going to factor this trinomial? This is what we're going to do. First, we have to put two parentheses here. Okay? Just like in my first lecture, when you see a positive number at the last term, you're going to copy this sign here. So whenever you have a positive for your last term, you will have the same sign on your two quantities. They must be the same. They will never be different because this is positive. Okay? And where will you get this sign? Why not both negative? Why positive? It's simply because you copy this sign here in the middle term. Okay? And then the square root of x squared is x. So you put two x's here. Okay? Now notice, the only factor of this last term, you will notice that the last term will always be a perfect square. Okay? And whenever we have a perfect square, the answer is nothing but the square root. And the square root of 25 is nothing but 5. So we put 5 here. So your answer now is x squared, So your answer now is x plus 5 for the first factor and another x plus 5 for the second factor. And you will notice one thing, that these two factors are the same. Okay? So instead of writing this, we're going to write the final answer, something like x plus 5, and you put the square here. Because they are the same. That is why this kind of factoring is named as perfect trinomial square, because this is a perfect square. Now, if you will ask me, which of these two will be your final answer? Remember that this part here is only the factored form. Okay? Yeah, but your final answer should be expressed like this. Alright, let's have another example. Say we have, this time let's use the variable y. Y squared, this time let's make the sign in the middle term negative, minus 6y, and then plus, say 9. Okay? So again, we put two parentheses here. Now since this is positive, okay, we put the sign here both negative because we just copied the sign on the middle term. So we have to write here both negative. Alright, and since we have y squared, the square root of y squared, or factored form of y squared, is nothing but y here and another y here. So when you multiply this, it becomes y squared. Okay, again, you will notice that this last term is a perfect square. And what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is nothing but 3. Now look again. You will notice that these two factors are the same. This is the factored form, and this is now your final answer. Okay, there you have it. Now, what are the things that we have to remember when we are factoring perfect trinomial square? Okay, first, make sure that the first term and the last term should be a perfect square. Okay? Now, remember also this, that the sign of this first term and last term should be the same or should be positive. Most of the time, they are both positive. Okay? Now, how do we check whether our answer is correct or not? Okay? Let's say, what if this number is too big for us to find the square root? There's another way to find the square root of this. In order to get the square root of this, it is nothing but half the numerical coefficient of the middle term. You divide this 6 by 2, it will give you 3, which is the square root of 9. And this is our factored form. And if we look back to our first example, we do the same thing here. You divide 10 by 2, it will give us 5, which is also the square root of the last term. Will it always be like that? The answer is yes. It will always be like that. Meaning to say, if you find this last term, let's say this is a big number, difficult to find the square root, all you have to do as a substitute, you divide the numerical coefficient of the middle term by 2, and that is already the square root of the last term. Okay, I hope I've made myself very clear there. Okay, let's have an example wherein this time, alright, this time, what if our last term is not a number or constant? What if it is a variable also? Let's have an example. Let's say we have x squared, okay, minus 2xy, and then plus y squared. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Alright, so we put two parentheses here. Okay, this is not our final answer. Since this is positive, we just copy the sign here. So it must be both negative. Remember, when this is positive, the sign of the two parentheses or two quantities should always be the same. Okay, now since the square root of x squared, or the factored form of x squared, is x here and another x here. Now you will notice that the factored form of y squared, just like what we did here, is also y and y here. Now how do we know that our answer here is correct? Very simple. You just have to divide this coefficient in the middle term by 2. So 2 divided by 2 will give us 1. And the square root of y squared is y. So that means there's a coefficient here not written anymore, 1 for both factors. Okay? And this is now our factored form. And since they are the same, completely the same, our final answer would be, and since our factored form is perfectly the same, our final answer would be x minus y squared. Okay? That will be the case. Alright? So, this is how we answer the perfect trinomial square. Just to remember, the first term and the last term should be a perfect square. How do we know if it's a perfect square? For number, we have to be familiar with the perfect square. For constant, we have to have the list of perfect squares. For variables, all you have to do is to check the exponent. If the exponent of the variable is an even number, then that means that that variable is a perfect square. Okay? So, this is how we solve the factoring using perfect trinomial square. Now, I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope to see you soon again for my next type of factoring. Thank you so much for watching.